Say I told you at the midway point of the regular season, one team between the Bengals and Steelers would be 6-2 and the other one would be 3-5. You would almost certainly say it's the Steelers, right? Because the Bengals clearly have a better roster, Pittsburgh better on defense, Cincinnati better on offense, but overall anyone would take the Bengals roster over the Steelers roster right now. They've got the better quarterback, they've got the better receiver, they've got the better offensive line. Those are all things that you need to win in the NFL in 2024. And yet here we are in October, late October, basically November at this point, with Pittsburgh in a position to still win this division, lead this division as we go into November. And this isn't all about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. I'll get to what we're getting to in a second. And the Bengals at 3-5 all of a sudden after getting shellacked at home on Sunday by the Eagles. So what is it? What makes one of those teams 6-2 despite pretty clearly, pretty obviously having a worse, not by a lot, but a slightly worse roster than the other team? What's the big difference there? Give you a second. Let's look at who's running the show. Mike Tomlin and Zach Taylor. It's coaching. And I'm not against Zach Taylor. I've said that a million times, and I'm not trying to say that he should be Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin's probably one of the best 3 coaches in the entire world when it comes to football. However, should there be that big of a difference when you're one of the 32 head coaches in the world? Should the second man, or should you be second to a guy? Should you have half the wins of one of your division rivals despite having more talent? I've defended Zach Taylor for a long time. I'm not saying there needs to be a coaching change, but I do think the coaches have to change. You don't need to change coaches, but the coaches need to change. Something different has to happen because there is way too much talent on this team to be 3-5, including 0-4 at home as we head into November. An awful Sunday for the Cincinnati Bengals. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. I'm not happy. It's not going to be a happy podcast. If you came here looking for some positivity, look elsewhere. And if you find it, they're full of baloney because there's nothing to be positive about after getting whacked by 20 points at home to an Eagles team that you're probably pretty on par with, right? What happened? So what's wrong with the Cincinnati Bengals? That's the question I found myself asking after I finally was able to take a few breaths and breathe for a minute after the game. What is wrong with this team? I think it's really 2 things. And one I just mentioned, it's the coaching. Again, you don't need to change coaches, but the coaches need to change. Zach Taylor, I think we've seen enough with the play calling. 3 consecutive weeks of not being able to score more than 20 points in a game. Yeah, they had 21 against the Browns. 7 of those came from the special teams. You've got the best wide receiver quarterback duo in the game, and you've not scored more than 17 points in 3 straight weeks? What more do you want? You've got the left tackle. I mean, I know not everything's perfect, but there are way too many weapons on this team. Way too many weapons on this team to not be scoring more than 17 points a game at this point. Early on in the season, you say, all right, give them some time to shake things out. What are we doing at this point? At what point does Zach Taylor look in the mirror? And I think I acknowledged a couple weeks ago he's done some things differently. He's been more aggressive, but I don't feel like he's committing. Yeah, going forward on 4th and 1, excuse me, that's aggressive, but then you throw it 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage? Commit to the bit. If you're going to be aggressive, be aggressive. Don't rein it in. I don't know. And it's frustrating because you think with this team, they've got all the talent. Again, I'm not saying Zach Taylor needs to go, and it doesn't matter if I did because Zach Taylor's not going anywhere, certainly not this year, and certainly probably not next either. What I am saying, and I think he's done an okay job of doing this, but he's got to do it more. You got to look at what you're doing wrong, and you got to change it immediately because you don't have time to sit there and think about what could be different. What should I be doing? You don't have time to take baby steps. All right, it's great. You got a little more aggressive. You went forward on 4th and 1 today in a big spot when you were down 7. Commit to the bit. Commit to the whole thing. Don't go forward on 4th and 1 and then throw it 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He's overthinking it every single week. You got the guys to get the job done. You got the guys on your roster to do this. Every single week. I mean, I think that at this point, he has got to hand the play calling off. I like him as a head coach. The players love him. I think we've changed how we feel, or we've changed what head coaching is, right? It used to always be a hot coordinator goes in. You're more of a CEO now. You should be able to hand the coordinator jobs off to the coordinators. Let Dan Pitcher in there. It can't be worse, right? I had someone on Twitter telling me, well, Dan Pitcher's never called plays. Okay. At some point, no one's ever called plays. At some point, Andy Reid had never called plays. At some point, Bill Belichick had never drawn up a blitz. Let guys do their jobs. Let the offensive coordinators coordinate the offense. Because what Zach Taylor's doing isn't working. He is holding this team back right now offensively. I'm 1,000% positive that the offense is held back because of his play calling. It gets too cute. He overthinks it. He does things in spots like the 4th and 1 today that just don't really make sense. Bengals had 2nd and 2. 2nd and 2. Couldn't get 2 yards on 3 plays. With this roster, you can't pick up 2 yards in 3 plays? I don't know if you know much about the Eagles' defense. They're nothing special. They're solid, sure. But they're nothing special. Just outrageous. Just outrageous. That, again, he's got to change. He's got to do things differently. I hope he can look at that and he can, figure it out, man. Pedal to the metal. You got nothing to lose at this point. Does it get any more embarrassing than what's already happened? With a 37-17 loss at home when your back is against the wall? So that's number one. That's the first thing I think. There's got to be something different with the coaching. Just not what it needs to be right now as far as the play callers go. The other thing, let's look at the other side of the ball. The defense, once again, I tweeted it out. Let me look it up. In their last 3 home games, not even including that awful loss to the Patriots, in their last 3 home games, the Cincinnati Bengals have allowed 109 points. That's an average of 38.6 points per game that the Cincinnati Bengals are allowing in their building. Now, they've played 3 decent offenses. Well, 2 really good ones in Baltimore and Washington, and one, probably somewhere between the 8th and the 12th best offense in Philadelphia today. 38 points. Couldn't do anything against them in the second half. Okay, so why is that? Just look around the defense. They were hoping for a few things to happen on defense, and really none of them have panned out. For me, and I've mentioned this several times, the big thing is DJ Reader's gone, and he meant a hell of a lot more than I think anyone realized. He was the anchor of that defense. He was, everything went through him. He held things down in the middle. That allowed everything else to work out. Sheldon Rankins, solid. It's not DJ Reader. I don't even know what DJ Reader got in Detroit, but I wish they would have gave it to him in Cincinnati. We've seen this play out too many times. You just look across the board. Trey Hendrickson gets held to no sacks today despite going up against a backup left tackle. I'm not going to rip on Trey Hendrickson. Actually, and I don't even want to look at this game individually today. Let's just look at this as a whole. I just told you how many ridiculous points the Bengals have allowed at home. So why is that? Well, at cornerback, you thought you had a number 1 guy. You don't. That happens sometimes, right? Cam Taylor-Britt's not who we thought he could be. He's not a bad cornerback, but he's not the lockdown guy we thought he could be. We thought if he was the lockdown guy, then the other guy would have a much easier job. That guy tore his ACL despite looking okay. Dax Hill done for the season. So right there, cornerback, not good. Less than average. It's safety. Geno Stones looked better, but again, a safety's only as good as the guys in front of him. Von Bell, solid as well, but again, the safety positions, when you don't have good cornerbacks and you're not getting a pass rush like they haven't today, things are tough. They're just okay. They're just okay. That's the problem. You kind of needed some of these guys to elevate. Go across the whole defensive roster. Outside of Trey Hendrickson, who was absent today against the Eagles, no one pops. They've got a lot of okay guys. And when you've got a lot of okay guys, plus a guy like DJ Reader, plus a guy like Trey Hendrickson when he's playing alongside Reader, then things look better. He's a guy who elevated a lot of people. That's gone. I think the Bengals miss him way more than anyone is talking about. It's unfortunate, but they don't have anyone on defense. They're just not working. Not good on cornerback, not great against the run for as good as Trey Hendrickson is against the pass. He's not a great run stopper. Sheldon Rankins doesn't necessarily play with the fire you would like to see out of your big guy up in the middle, and he's not made to stop the run. So they just, it's tough, man. You got to get the pieces right, and they didn't. They're not, I still think this is a mirage, what we're seeing on defense. I still think that it's not totally accurate what we're seeing on defense. I really don't think they're that bad, but they don't fit. I mean, like Zach Taylor said after the game today, you are what your record says you are. He said, I don't think we're as bad as our record, but you are what your record is. Yeah, that's what it is, man. Early on in the season, you're 1-3. You can make that argument. 3-5 at this point, midway point of the season. Yeah, your record is what you are. And again, back against the wall against the Eagles. And the Eagles were the perfect measuring stick game to learn what we need to know about this team. And what we learned is that they stink. I think they have the ability to be good, but I don't think they're putting guys in position to succeed. I don't think that they have the youth and the explosion on defense to make plays. I mean, once the Eagles got rolling in the second half, it was a thorough ass kicking. I mean, in the second half, let's just go through. Eagles get a touchdown to start. Next possession, touchdown. Bengals turn it over, field goal. Eagles scored on all 5 of their second half possessions. Do you have any pride on that side of the ball? Can you do anything? How many plays did they run? They had a 12-play possession, and that was their longest one in the second half. I mean, first they get the ball, 8 plays, touchdown. 3 plays, touchdown. 4 plays, field goal. 12 plays, touchdown. I mean, the Eagles scored on their last 6 possessions of the game, including 3 straight touchdowns between the end of the second quarter and the third quarter. I mean, Lou Anarumo's whole kind of thing has been making adjustments at halftime, shutting guys down, and they just caved. And I've said it again, at some point you have to wonder, I mean, are the players bought in? It certainly doesn't seem like it. It didn't look like it out there today. It looked like the Bengals turned it over on the 4th and 1, and the team said, all right, well, 45 seconds left in the third quarter. We're down 7. Let's pack it on up. That's what happened. It was bad. It was bad. It was worse than the New England loss in week 1. Let me finish this thought first. So those are the 2 things I think when I sit and I think, what is wrong with this team? It's those 2 things. Again, to summarize, the coaches and specifically Zach Taylor on offense, the play calling, it's not what it should be. You might be a good CEO. Your players like you. I think that you're a good offensive mind, obviously, but at the top, to be better, to be an NFL play caller is hard enough. To be a good one, you're not there. You're clearly not there. And I said it last week. I think he's almost too nice. He doesn't have that dog in him, as the kids say. Zach Taylor does not have that dog in him. And I think to be the leader of an organization and of a football team and the guy who's calling the plays, when you're getting punched in the mouth, as you do in the AFC North, you got to have that dog in you. I think he's not there. Yeah, it's great that you go for it on 4th and 1. Make a play call that makes sense, though, man. He's not there. So it starts with the coaching. Again, they're not going to make a coaching change, but I think the coaches have to change. They will not change coaches, but the coaches need to change. That sounds a lot more fluid, doesn't it? So it starts there. I mean, the play calling's just, there's too much talent to be this bad. Simple as that. I mean, you could sit here and talk about it for hours, but at the end of the day, you've got a top 5 quarterback, probably the best receiver in football, undoubtedly top 3, and an okay offensive line. They could be better. You got to be better. You got to score more than 17 points in 3 straight games. Commit to something else. Do what Kevin Stefanski of the Browns did last week. Hand the play calling off, because is it going to be worse? At least give someone else a shot. Swallow the pride a bit. Do what's best for this team to win. I think Zach Taylor needs to ask himself honestly if he is doing what's best for this team to win. I think that's a hard question for him to answer, because he wants to be the offensive genius. He knows the knocks on him. He knows that people think he just got the job because he worked under Sean McVay. He's got something to prove. That's great. Prove it at a different time, because right now you're on the brink of being eliminated from the playoffs before Thanksgiving. It starts there, and then defensively, they just don't have any pop. They're okay. The whole team's okay. They're not a bad team, but they're an okay team. Their wins have come against the Panthers, Browns, and Giants, all 3 teams that are going to be picking in the top 10 next year. They're an okay team. Maybe an okay team sneaks into the playoffs and you get 1 win, but that's going to be it. Maybe you sneak in, you get a 7 seed, and upset whoever because Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But I don't know because we're going to throw the ball 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage on 4th and 1. So that's where I'm at. Defensively, there's just no pop. Offensively, the play calling sucks. Not a good recipe. Not a good recipe. The Bengals were hoping a lot of things would go well this year, and I don't know that any of them have. Of the things that were kind of like 50-50 balls, like, I mean, you know, you kind of hope that the age wouldn't get them this year on defense. It has. It has. You kind of hope that Sheldon Rankins would maybe do a little more in the middle, and he's been banged up, but you hope that Myles Murphy would be more of a contributor. He's got some plays here and there, but it's not working out. You hope that Joseph Osai would finally take that next step. Yeah, he did against the Giants and the Browns. Cool. He had a few plays. So did Myles Murphy. You hoped a lot of things would happen. That's not what good teams do. Mike Tomlin's not hoping that, you know, his defense will show up tomorrow night. He knows what's going to happen. He knows what his team needs to do to win. He knew that despite being 4-2, he could coach or he could bench Justin Fields. Good coaches know. Good organizations know. The Bengals right now are hoping. That's the difference. So, and a bonus third, I mean, it's not running the ball well. The interior offensive line hasn't been that good. Alex Kappa just getting pushed back way too often. And again, none of them are awful. They're just all okay. And that's not what the expectations were for this team. That's never what the expectation should be for a team that's had 3 straight winning seasons and been to 2 of the last 3 AFC championships. So, yeah, those are the 2 things for me. You know, the Bengals went 10 of 13 on 3rd downs. That's really good. Only scored 17 points. How's that happen? How does that happen? Let's take a look. Let's see how it happens. I mean, yeah, just couldn't, you know, they get the first 2 drives, get 10 points, force the Eagles to punt. They miss a field goal. It all went downhill after the field goal. The Evan McPherson, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. After the McPherson miss, Philadelphia went on a 34-7 run. It just took the air out of the building. After the McPherson miss, I mean, it was literally, I mean, just all Eagles. After that missed field goal, the Eagles scored 21 points in their next 33 plays. I guess that's not that crazy. Or no, that's not right. The Eagles scored 21 points in their next 23 plays. So that is, I mean, and again, I'm not saying the Evan McPherson missed field goal caused the Bengals to lose. My dad kind of felt like it did, though. I mean, that's a momentum shift right there. You give the Eagles a short field. They tie it up, come out, get the ball. I mean, you gave them momentum. I know there was a big discussion on the stupid app Twitter this week about if momentum's real. Momentum's real. Watch the games. People are on crack. Yeah, just an ugly one. This loss was worse than the Patriots loss because with the Patriots loss, you can say, with the loss to New England, you can say a couple things. One, they were very motivated. They were told all offseason they're going to be the team with the number 1 pick in the draft. They suck. Belichick's gone. Brady's gone. First-year head coach, rookie quarterback. You got nothing. And most people were right, but when an NFL team hears that all offseason, they're excited to play for a coach, which it seems like the guys like Gerard Mayo, and I still think some of them were probably happy to be gone and away from Belichick. Whole new team. It's tough for the Bengals to prepare for that game. I can see how that one slips away. This one is worse. This is one where you had a chance to put together a 3-game winning streak in front of your home fans and get back to 500. And what did you do? You absolutely crumbled. Just absolutely fell apart in the second half. Miss 1 field goal and the whole thing unravels. That's not the sign of a good team. I don't know what's going on inside that locker room, but that didn't feel like a team to me that was playing for each other on Sunday. That felt like a team to me that kind of got down a little bit and said, yep, here we go again. Let's pack it on up. Eagles score in their last 6 possessions. Bengals have it on 2nd and 2. Couldn't get 2 yards in 3 plays. It's frustrating. You know, where do they go from here, I guess, is the next question. And I don't know that it matters. Like, what's the ceiling for this team? What's the ceiling for a team that's, I mean, what's the ceiling for this team? Like a 6 or 7 seed in the wild card? It's not the division. You got two legitimate teams in front of you in the division. By the way, literally every early game on Sunday went the way of the Bengals except for the one played in Cincinnati. Ravens lose. All of the AFC teams lose to the NFC teams. An incredible chance to gain some ground in the playoff hunt, and they piss down their legs. Awful. Just your 3 wins come against the Panthers, Giants, and Browns, who I think combined for like 4 wins coming into the day. Let's see. Panthers, Giants, and Browns, the 3 teams the Bengals have beat this year, were a combined 4-17 coming into Sunday. They haven't beat anyone. They haven't won a good game all season. And yeah, they were close in a lot of them. Cool. Close is fun, isn't it? You never know what's worse, like a game like this, where with 5 minutes to go left in the fourth quarter, it's over, or one where you lose at the very end, like against Kansas City. And I still don't know the answer, but this is about as frustrating as it gets because you feel like, do the fans feel more frustrated? I don't know. I don't want to go down that road, but man, it's a broken team right now. It's a broken team. Good teams do not lose by 20 points at home when they have the opportunity the Bengals had today to get back to 500, to build some momentum. It's not what good teams do. So they get the Raiders, are 8.5-point favorites already. I just don't care. Even if you beat the Raiders, so what? You get the Ravens the next week in Baltimore. Is there anyone who thinks the Bengals right now could beat anyone who's decent? I feel like the team's falling apart. I'm not 100% why, but I got to think at some point they kind of understand the same things we can see. And it's easy to say, well, fans don't. Everyone on Twitter knew that the Bengals weren't good enough on the defensive line coming into the season. They get 0 sacks today. Saquon Barkley just does what he wants. What's Saquon end up with today? Over 100 yards, I'm sure. 22 carries, 108 yards. 5 yards a pop. So, yeah, and I mean, again, you don't have that number 2 cornerback. The Bengals hoped a lot of things would work out for them. Pretty much none of them have. You can't hope. You know, if you're a team that went 5-12 last year, you can hope a few things go so you can get back toward 500. If you have Super Bowl aspirations, maybe don't hope, especially when you're in the same division as 2 of the best-run organizations in all of sports, which unfortunately reside in Baltimore and Pittsburgh. You look at the Bengals record versus some of the other records, and it's just like they're too talented to be 3-5. They really are. They really are. Like, what's Los Angeles at? I mean, would they have a first-year head coach? They're at 4-3. Schedule's a schedule, whatever. But, yeah. It's what you are, man. You are what your record says you are, as Zach Taylor kind of said today after he said we're better than our record. But that's where it's at. And they're an okay team. And I think for me, I'm going to have to accept that. I'm going to expect from now on, I'm kind of going back to like my, be easy how I say this, I'm kind of going back to my 2021 expectations. I just hope they can sneak in and win a playoff game. That's where we're at. So, hey, in years past, that would have been great. But the expectations have changed in Cincinnati, and that kind of, dampens things up a little bit. So this is a short one. I'm going to get out of here. I mean, what are you paying attention to this team for tonight? There's a lot of great things out there in the world. Go be a part of them. But for me, I'm not going full Browns fan mode where I'm saying I'm not going to watch the team on Sunday anymore. I've been through much worse than this. I mean, there's been years when 3-5 would have been an okay start. But when you have the expectations that we had for this team, it's just not good enough. So we'll stick with it. We'll see what happens. Maybe they go on a run. But right now, the expectations have went way down. I mean, so that's where we're at. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. It's In the Jungle. We'll do it again on Friday as the Bengals get ready for the Las Vegas Raiders and Gardner Minshew. The Raiders gave Kansas City a bit of a scare today, and they've won in Baltimore. So no guarantees in the NFL in general. Certainly no guarantees with this Bengals team. I'm curious to see how they'll bounce back because it looked like in that second half on Sunday, they weren't terribly interested in playing football professionally. So we'll see if that changes throughout the course of the week. Maybe it does. Hopefully it does. And if it doesn't, then we're going to be even angrier next week. So fun football season. Aren't you glad it's back? We wait all off season for this just to be crushed 6 weeks, 8 weeks into the thing, whatever it is. Not even Halloween yet, and we're ready to throw the whole thing over and stir the whole thing out and start over again. Hell with it. It's in the jungle. If you liked it, you're a psycho. If you don't, you're still here. So whatever. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you Friday.